When Nasi walked into the luxury boutique, she froze. Her younger brother, Igbo, was holding her black platinum card, the one only she had access to, while their mother beamed proudly at him. "Don't hold back, son," her mom said. "Your sister won't mind. She has plenty." The cashier smiled at Nasi, unaware she was watching her own money being spent. And in that moment, Nasi knew, this wasn't about a card. It was about everything her family had taken for granted. Nasi grew up in a home where love was never equal. Her parents adored her younger brother, Igbo, and always made him feel special, while she was told to do better, no matter how much she achieved. When Igbo got an average grade, their mother clapped and said how proud she was. But when Nasi topped her class, they only nodded and said, "That's what we expect from you." Deep down, she wanted their approval more than anything. She studied hard, worked late nights, and dreamed of making her family proud one day. When Nasi earned a full scholarship to study abroad, everyone in her house acted like it was no big deal. Her father even said, "You're just lucky." But she knew it wasn't luck, it was hard work. In the new country, Nasi worked part-time jobs, stayed up studying, and built a small tech idea that later grew into a real business. Over the years, her startup became successful, and she finally had more than enough to live comfortably. But back home, her parents didn't call to ask how she was doing or to say they missed her. They only called when they needed something: school fees for Igbo, new phones, or help paying house bills. At first, she didn't mind. She thought, "They supported me once, so it's only fair I give back." Every time her mother said, "We're short on money," she sent cash without thinking twice. She didn't realize she was becoming what her family secretly saw her as: a never-ending source of money. Whenever she visited home, the warmth she expected wasn't there. Instead of hugs, she heard complaints. "You've changed," her mother said one day. "You think you're better than us now." But all Nasi ever wanted was to belong. So she gave more, hoping money would bring closeness. She bought them gifts, paid for vacations, and handled every expense they mentioned. Still, nothing changed. The more she gave, the less they valued her. Soon, Nasi began to feel invisible in her own family. Her success didn't make them proud, it made them comfortable. They treated her achievements like something they owned. Every dollar she sent made her disappear a little more, until she wasn't their daughter anymore. She was just a wallet with a name. And the saddest part was that Nasi didn't even see it happening. She thought she was showing love, but she was slowly losing herself. After 5 long years abroad, Nasi finally returned home. Her heart was full of excitement. She had brought suitcases filled with gifts, perfumes, watches, clothes, and gadgets, all chosen with love. She imagined her family rushing to hug her, telling her how proud they were. But when she entered the house, the joy she expected wasn't there. Her mother was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone, barely looking up to say, "Oh, you're back." Her father gave her a short nod, and Igbo, her younger brother, didn't even smile. He was too busy showing off his new car keys to a friend outside. Trying to ignore the cold welcome, Nasi handed out the gifts she had bought. Her mother took the expensive handbag without a thank you. Her father admired the watch but didn't ask how she had been. Igbo laughed and said, "You didn't have to get me anything. I already have better stuff now." When Nasi asked where he got his new car, her mother proudly said, "Oh, I helped him with some transfers from your account. You don't mind, right? You always say money isn't your problem." For a moment, Nasi froze. Her account? She hadn't given anyone permission. "What? Transfers?" she asked softly, trying not to sound angry. Her father laughed and said, "Come on, Nasi. Family doesn't count pennies. It's all for your brother's future." Igbo smirked and added, "You're rich now, sis. Don't act like you can't share." The word stung. She had worked day and night, built everything from scratch, and yet they spoke like her success belonged to them. That evening, everyone gathered around the dinner table. They talked and laughed about Igbo's new car, his clothes, his plans to travel, all funded by her money. No one asked about her company or her life abroad. When Nasi tried to talk about her business, her mother changed the topic to another thing Igbo wanted to buy. Her heart sank deeper with every passing minute. When everyone went to bed, Nasi stayed awake, staring at her phone. She opened her banking app, her hands trembling slightly. The numbers shocked her. Nearly $180,000 had disappeared over the past year. transfers, withdrawals, luxury purchases, all linked to family expenses. Tears filled her eyes, not just for the money, but for the truth she could no longer ignore. Her family didn't love her presence, they loved her wallet. And for the first time, Nasi realized she had come home not to a family, but to people who only remembered her when they needed something. 2 weeks after returning home, Nasi's mother called her one morning, sounding unusually cheerful. "Let's all go shopping today," she said. "It's been so long since we spent time together as a family." Nasi hesitated at first but then agreed, hoping maybe this outing would bring them closer again. She wanted to believe that her family still cared about her beyond money. Maybe this was her mother's way of making peace. They drove to one of the most expensive malls in the city. The marble floors shone, and the air smelled of new luxury. Her mother walked proudly ahead, Igbo by her side, laughing and pointing at designer stores. Nasi followed quietly, watching them with a faint smile, trying to convince herself that this was a normal day out. When they stopped at a high-end boutique, her mother told Igbo, "Pick whatever you like, son. You've worked hard." As the store clerk carried piles of expensive shirts, watches, and shoes to the counter, Nasi was a little surprised. She didn't remember her brother working anywhere, but she said nothing. Then her mother reached into her handbag and pulled out a familiar black card, one Nasi instantly recognized. Her heart skipped. It was her own business card, the one connected to her company's main account. She had never shared that card or its details with anyone. The clerk smiled as her mother handed it to Igbo. "Here's the card, son," her mother said proudly. "Buy whatever you want. There's 5 million on it." Nasi froze completely. 5 million? That was her hard-earned business capital, not some shared family account. The clerk swiped the card, and the machine beeped. $72,000, he said cheerfully. Everyone smiled. Her mother, her brother, even the sales assistant. Everyone except Nasi. She stepped forward slowly, her voice trembling but calm. "Whose card is that?" she asked. Her mother turned to her with the same look she gave whenever Nasi questioned her decisions. Cold and dismissive. "It's all family money, isn't it?" she said, as if the explanation was enough. The words hit Nasi like a slap. Family money. That's what they called her years of struggle, her sleepless nights, her sacrifices. To them, her success wasn't hers. It was theirs to spend. Nasi stood there silently, watching her mother sign the receipt with a smile, as if nothing wrong had happened. For the first time, she realized her family would never stop taking as long as she kept giving. And in that boutique, surrounded by glittering lights and luxury bags, Nasi made a quiet promise to herself. This would be the last time they used her without consequences. That evening after the shopping trip, Nasi's mother announced proudly that they would all go out for dinner to celebrate family time. Nasi was still trying to process what had happened earlier at the boutique, but she decided to stay calm. Maybe this dinner would give her a chance to talk things through peacefully. They arrived at one of the most expensive restaurants in town, the kind where every table was set with gold cutlery and chandeliers sparkled above. Her mother ordered without even glancing at the menu prices: steak, seafood platters, champagne, and desserts. Nasi watched quietly as her family laughed and chatted like everything was perfect. When the waiter brought the bill, her mother didn't hesitate. She handed over the same black card, Nasi's card, like it was her own. That was the moment Nasi couldn't hold it in anymore. She took a deep breath and asked, "Why are you using my card again, Mom?" Her mother didn't even look up. "Oh, stop being dramatic," she said, cutting into her meal. "It's just dinner. You're rich because we raised you. You owe us comfort." Nasi's chest tightened. Those words hit her harder than she expected. She looked at her father, hoping for some understanding, but he only shrugged and said, "Your mother's right. You wouldn't be who you are today without us." Igbo leaned back in his chair, smirking. "Stop acting like a victim," he said. "We're family, not strangers. It's just money." The table went quiet after that, except for the soft clinking of cutlery. Nasi's hands trembled as she picked up her fork again. For years, she had believed that giving meant love. She thought that by helping her family financially, she was showing gratitude and care. But now, sitting there and watching them enjoy her hard-earned money without even a trace of appreciation, she realized it wasn't love anymore. It was control. They had turned her kindness into something they expected, something they demanded. Her mother looked up suddenly and said, You should be thankful. Nasi, you're blessed enough to give. Nasi smiled faintly, but it wasn't the same smile she used to give before. Something inside her had changed. For the first time, she saw the truth clearly. Her family didn't love her generosity. They depended on it like oxygen. When the waiter came back with her card and receipt, Nasi quietly took it back and slid it into her bag. Her voice was calm when she said, "Enjoy your meal. This will be the last dinner on me." Her mother laughed, thinking she was joking, but Nasi's eyes told a different story. That night, as they drove home, she looked out of the car window and made a silent promise to herself. She was done being their provider, their wallet, their safety net. From that moment on, things would never be the same again. The next morning, Nasi woke up early, her mind calm but her heart steady with a new kind of strength. When she walked into the kitchen, her mother and Igbo were already there, laughing over breakfast as if nothing had happened the night before. Nasi smiled softly and greeted them, pretending everything was fine. She even said, "Mom, I'll send some money later for the month's upkeep." And her mother nodded with a satisfied grin, completely unaware that Nasi's kindness this time had a purpose. On the outside, Nasi was the same, kind, quiet, obedient. But inside, she was planning carefully. After finishing breakfast, she left home saying she had a few meetings to attend. Instead of going to her usual office routine, she went straight to her company's legal department and asked to meet with her finance attorney, a woman named Clara who had been with her since the beginning of her business. Clara noticed the worry in Nasi's eyes and said gently, "What's wrong?" Nasi explained everything, the shopping spree, the restaurant dinner, the missing money. Then she said quietly, "I need to know how far this goes." Together, they started going through every account linked to her company. It took hours. They traced payments, compared digital signatures, and checked every card access. By afternoon, Clara looked up shocked. "Nasi," she said, "someone linked a secondary card to your main business account, under the name Igbo Adisa." Nasi's stomach dropped. "How is that possible?" she asked. Clara clicked on a file and showed her the authorization form. Nasi's name and signature were there, perfectly copied. "This isn't your handwriting," Clara said firmly. "It's forged." Nasi stared at the screen in disbelief. Her own mother had forged her signature, not only to give her brother access but to make it look legal. Every luxury purchase, every big withdrawal, every family expense had come from her business funds. It wasn't just a mistake or misunderstanding anymore. It was a crime. For a moment, Nasi felt tears sting her eyes, but she blinked them away. She wasn't going to cry this time. She had cried enough for them. "I want every detail recorded," she said firmly. "Every unauthorized transaction, every document, everything." Clara nodded and began gathering evidence. When Nasi walked out of the office that evening, the city lights reflected in her eyes. She had always thought her family could hurt her only emotionally, but now she saw the truth. They had stolen from her, used her, and even forged her name. But this time, she wasn't going to be silent. This time, she had proof, and she was ready to use it. Nasi knew that confronting her family directly would only lead to more lies and excuses. They would twist her words, play the victims, and make her look like the ungrateful daughter. So instead of reacting with anger, she decided to stay quiet and think smart. If they wanted to treat her like a bank, she would let them. But this time, she would record every withdrawal. A few days later, Nasi called her mother with a warm tone. "Mom," she said, "I've been thinking. I want to invest in something that brings our family together, maybe a fashion line under our name. You've always had great taste and I trust you to handle the funds." Her mother's voice changed immediately. "Oh, my dear daughter, that's such a wonderful idea. Family business, yes, that's what we need." She sounded more excited than Nasi had heard in years. Nasi told her she would send $200,000 from her personal savings to start the project. Her mother eagerly agreed to manage everything. "Igbo can help too," she said proudly. "He's been wanting to start something of his own." Nasi smiled through the phone. "Perfect," she replied, already knowing where this was heading. Within a week, the first $50,000 disappeared. Her mother said it was for store rentals and business consultants. Then another $100,000 vanished, spent on expensive designer clothes, watches, a new car for Igbo, and a luxury vacation to meet suppliers. Nasi didn't ask questions. She acted supportive, sending texts like, "Hope everything's going well," and "Can't wait to see the progress." But behind the scenes, every cent was being legally tracked. Her finance attorney, Clara, had set up a monitoring system that recorded every transaction, receipt, and digital signature, all linked to her mother and Igbo's names. They were unknowingly writing their own confession. One night, Clara emailed Nasi the final report. It was over 100 pages long, listing all the purchases, from a diamond bracelet to hotel bills in Dubai. Not a single dollar had gone into any real business. It was clear. The family fashion line was just another excuse to drain her money. Nasi sat quietly in her office, the city lights glowing through the window. She flipped through the report, page by page, her face calm. There were no tears this time. She had spent years being the emotional daughter, trying to fix everything with love and forgiveness. But now, she finally understood. Love without respect always turns into abuse. She closed the file, took a deep breath, and whispered softly, "Let's see how family money feels in court." At that moment, Nasi wasn't just a betrayed daughter anymore. She was a woman reclaiming her power, not with anger, but with evidence. The same family that stole from her was about to learn that her silence had never meant weakness. The day of Nasi's company's annual dinner arrived, and she planned it with careful precision. It was one of the biggest events of the year, a glamorous evening filled with business leaders, investors, and employees who admired her success. But this time, the dinner had a deeper purpose. It wasn't just a celebration. It was the stage for truth. Nasi personally sent her family special invitations. Her mother was thrilled, bragging to her friends that her daughter was honoring them at a high-class event. Her father bought a new suit, and Igbo showed off his designer shoes, all bought with Nasi's money. They arrived at the Grand Hotel ballroom smiling proudly, acting like they owned the place. Nasi greeted them politely, her face calm and unreadable. "I'm glad you came," she said softly, then walked away to meet her guests. The night began with music, laughter, and the soft glow of chandeliers. Nasi moved around the tables, greeting people, but her eyes often went to the front row where her family sat comfortably, enjoying the luxury she paid for. When dinner was almost over, she stepped onto the stage, holding a microphone. The room fell silent. "Thank you all for being here tonight," she began, her voice clear and steady. "This year has been full of challenges, lessons, and revelations. And tonight, I want to share something deeply personal, something every business owner should hear." The large screen behind her flickered to life. The title appeared in bold letters, "The Price of Betrayal." At first, the audience thought it was a motivational documentary. But as the video played, confusion spread. Bank transfers appeared on the screen, thousands of dollars moving from her company account to personal ones under the names Igbo Adisa and Amara Adisa. Then came screenshots of emails, signed documents, and finally, the forged signature that matched her name. The whispers grew louder. Gasps echoed through the room. Her family froze in their seats, their smiles disappearing. Her mother's face turned pale as she realized what was happening. "Nasi," she muttered under her breath. "What are you doing?" Nasi looked straight at her from the stage. Her voice was calm but sharp as a knife. "I'm showing the truth," she said. Her mother stood up, shaking. "You'd humiliate your own family like this?" she cried. The whole room watched in silence. Nasi's eyes met hers, unwavering. "You did that when you stole from me," she replied. The audience gasped again. The truth was out, raw, undeniable, and powerful. Her parents couldn't speak. Igbo lowered his head, ashamed. When the video ended, Nasi thanked the audience for their attention and walked off the stage with quiet dignity. That night, she didn't just expose them, she freed herself from years of silence. Within hours after the dinner, Nasi's story was everywhere. News headlines filled the internet. Wealthy entrepreneur exposes and sues her own family for fraud. It spread like wildfire. Everyone wanted to know how a daughter so calm and polite could take such a bold step. Reporters gathered outside her office. Journalists replayed the viral clip from the dinner. The moment she said, "You did that when you stole from me," it became one of the most shared videos of the year. Her parents woke up the next morning to flashing cameras outside their gate. Their phones buzzed nonstop, but none of the calls were friendly. Old friends stopped picking up. Their church members whispered whenever they entered. People they once bragged to now crossed the street to avoid them. Her mother stayed inside for days, afraid to face anyone. Her father tried to call Nasi, but she didn't answer. She had already handed everything to her lawyers. Igbo's life changed overnight too. His social media followers, who once praised his luxury lifestyle, now flooded his comments with insults. "So the cars weren't yours?" one said. "You lived off your sister's hard work?" said another. His sponsorships ended, his brand deals were cancelled, and his name became a joke online. Every lie they told had finally caught up with them. Weeks later, the court date arrived. The courtroom was full. Reporters sat quietly in the back, cameras ready. Nasi entered in a simple black suit, calm and focused. Her parents sat on the opposite side, faces tired, eyes red from sleepless nights. Igbo sat beside them, unable to meet her gaze. When it was time to speak, her father stood up. His voice trembled as he said, "We didn't mean harm, Nasi. We just wanted to share in your success. You're our daughter." The room was silent. Everyone waited for her reply. Nasi stood up slowly and faced him. Her voice was steady, filled with years of quiet pain. "You didn't share my struggle," she said. "You only shared the harvest. When I worked late nights and cried alone, where were you then?" Her father looked down. There was nothing left to say. The judge read the verdict after hours of testimony and evidence. Every transaction, every forged document, every lie was laid bare. The court ruled in Nasi's favor. All joint accounts connected to her name were frozen immediately. Her family's access to her money was cut off completely. As the judgment was announced, Nasi closed her eyes and let out a slow breath. It wasn't victory she felt, it was peace. For the first time, she wasn't trapped by guilt or manipulation. Her parents left the courtroom in silence, the world finally seeing the truth. Nasi walked out quietly, knowing she had lost a family, but regained herself. Months passed after the court ruling, and the once proud mansion her parents loved so much now stood almost empty. The grand cars were gone, the staff dismissed, and silence filled every corner. A large for sale sign was placed in front of the gate, the same gate Nasi used to walk through with gifts and groceries. Now everything inside had to be sold to pay off debts and legal fees. The family that once looked down on others now lived in the shadow of their own actions. Her mother tried to hold things together, but the calls from banks and creditors never stopped. Friends who used to visit disappeared. Invitations stopped coming. Even Igbo, once obsessed with showing off online, deleted his accounts and hid from public view. Their world had collapsed not because of bad luck, but because of their greed. One afternoon, as Nasi was working in her office, her phone rang. The caller ID showed her mother's name. She hesitated for a moment before answering. On the other end, her mother's voice shook with emotion. "You've ruined us, Nasi," she said softly. "Are you happy now? Everything is gone." Nasi listened quietly for a moment. The pain in her mother's voice was real, but so was the pain of years she had endured. "No, Mama," she replied calmly. "I'm not happy, but maybe now you'll understand that love without respect is just greed. I didn't ruin you. Choices did." There was silence on the other side before her mother hung up. That night, Nasi sat alone on her balcony, looking out at the city lights. She didn't feel victorious or proud. She felt free. Free from guilt, free from control, free from pretending. For years, she had carried the weight of being the provider, the peacekeeper, the one who gave without being valued. Now, she finally understood that setting boundaries wasn't cruelty. It was self-respect. A few weeks later, Nasi made a quiet but powerful move. She donated a large portion of the settlement money to a new foundation that supported young women who had been financially exploited by their families. She named it the Rebuild Project. The announcement spread online, and her story became a source of inspiration for thousands. People began calling her the woman who taught the world about boundaries. But to Nasi, it wasn't about fame. It was about peace. The kind that comes when you finally stop trying to fix people who refuse to value you. The world saw a headline, but she knew it was much more. It was the story of finding strength in silence after the storm. That a year later, Nasi stood on a bright stage at a Women in Tech conference, her name displayed proudly behind her. The audience was filled with young women who looked up to her, not because of her money, but because of her courage. She wasn't the girl who once begged for her family's approval anymore. She was a woman who had learned that strength sometimes means walking away, even from those you love. As she spoke, her voice was calm and full of warmth. Forgiving them wasn't about letting them back in, she said, her eyes scanning the crowd. It was about freeing myself. The room fell silent, every ear tuned to her words. For a long time, forgiveness had sounded like weakness to her. But now she understood. It was her final act of power. She didn't forgive to make them comfortable. She forgave so she could breathe again. After the event, as she sat in her hotel room, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Igbo. He had changed. Gone was the pride, the show-off attitude, the careless talk about money. He was now working as an assistant at a small community center, helping underprivileged kids learn about technology. His message was short but heartfelt. Thank you for teaching me what real wealth means. Nasi read the message twice, and a small smile formed on her face. For the first time, she didn't feel anger or sadness. She felt peace, a deep, quiet peace that no amount of money could buy. The same black card they had once stolen, the one with $5 million, had represented her worth in their eyes. But now, she realized her true worth was never in her bank account. It was in her heart, her resilience, and her freedom. That evening,